My name is Craig Alston. My passion is spreading joy through music. It's like jumping into the water, like jumping into the deep end of the pool. You just be like, I got to figure out how to swim to the edges, or I'm going to sink. So that's part of the adventure. It's like not always knowing. And some people have played songs enough, have enough language, because again, music is a language. And within each language, there's different things stylistically that make up that language. So when you play bebop, there's certain things you play when you play bebop. And, in all kinds of music, in the gospel music, there's certain kind of turnarounds, or there's certain kind of movements that let you know that, hey, this is gospel music. Not to say there can't be improvisation with anything, because there's improvisation in classical music as well. Back in the Baroque days, Bach and them, in the Baroque days, and even with Beethoven and all them, they would build in certain aspects where you can improvise a little bit. Now, it's not like they're not using bebop language, but they're using the language, a certain kind of language that they use within that to improvise as well. And I play a lot of wrong notes, but it's the funny thing about jazz and music in general is like, it's not going to all be perfect in the beginning. It's not going to be pristine. You got to kind of make some mistakes. It's just like riding a bike. You ride a bike, you fall off a couple times. You start figuring out, like, I don't want to fall off the bike anymore. So I want to ride a little bit longer. I want to start doing some tricks. So you start developing tools to figure out how to survive within it. Well, I started in the band program, just kind of trying to read whatever was on the sheet. It took time, because at first I didn't quite understand what was going on. But it's just like reading, like when you're a kid, when you learn how to read as a kid, you start developing skills and strategies and building blocks of vocabulary, so you can learn how to pronounce larger words, and have more meaning, have context and context clues and stuff like that. So I would do stuff like, at some points I would, because I wasn't particularly good at reading at first either, but what I did is I would write down like rhythms, like certain rhythms that I would see. I knew I would see these again, so I might have like a little rhythmic dictionary. Or like when I was in college, I had a little scrapbook that I carried around, like a little book of staff paper, where I would write down chords. Because when I was in college, that's when I really sat down at the piano, and I was fascinated by harmony. So what I would do is I would write down these chord changes the best I could, and I had like a little chord library of chords that I wrote together. And then eventually, sometimes I would sit down and start putting them together to try to come up with songs. If I'm playing saxophone, sometimes people be like, well, it's kind of complicated, but then they say it's like soulful in its own way, or it's like, or they'll just say that I have my own voice. They'd be like, you don't really sound like anybody else, which I think, is a good thing. I remember meeting Grover Washington Jr. when I was like 14 or 15, and the first thing he said to me is, he's like, and I wasn't even really playing at that point, but he said, the one thing that you want to do is you want to develop a voice so that people know who you are from the very first note. And I think that just kind of etched right in my hard drive in my brain. It just burnt right in there. And from the very beginning, I just always wanted to kind of just figure out what my sound was. And I mean, I have a lot of influences, of course, because when I was growing up, I listened to a whole lot of records. That's what I did. Most kids might have been outside playing. I'm listening to records. And I did my fair amount of playing, but, I spent a lot of time listening to records. My parents listened to very different things. My mother listened to like soul music and pop music. My father listened to like funk and jazz. So it was very, very different dynamics. So, so I go to my father's house, I might be listening to like Stanley Tarantino or David Fathead Newman or Hank Crawford and, all these different people. And I never, or the Crusaders, Wilton Felder or Ronnie Laws, and I never knew that I was even gonna go that direction. And then, eventually when I heard like Dexter Gordon and Sonny Rollins, I was just like, wow, that's it. And I didn't hear Charlie Parker till I was getting ready to finish high school. And then when I got in college and I heard John Coltrane for the first time, I just basically I quit. I put my horn in the corner. I went and played basketball for like 5 or 6 weeks. So I was like, there's no need to even try to play. There's no way anybody's going to play as great as John Coltrane. My first introduction to John Coltrane was at Love Supreme. And I heard an acknowledgement. I was like, okay, it's cool. But then when I heard Resolution, it was beautiful and haunting at the same time. You know, it was like he's playing with this is very, very, like, this very ferocious, but at the same time it's like eloquent, like very lyrical, and it's like, you know, spiritual, you know. So it's just like I felt every single note he was playing, and it was just like, and I was obsessed with it. I listened to it every day for like years. Like, that was one of the records I listened to every day. That and Miles Davis, Nefertiti. I used to listen to those records like every day because I just felt like they were just reaching for this other thing that was beyond just like traditional bebop, beyond anything. It just seemed boundless to me.